sort of commitment to making the most of this period of lockdown. Yeah, very, very good. Shall we see who's here, Michael? Shall we say a few names? Because I can't really see you. Michael's doing all the tech. I'm joined by Michael, Guillaume, and Jana Dyer, who are my team, my tech crew. Hello, Swati. Nice to see you. I'm glad you're here. Mark. Hello, Mark from Stepney. That's great. Hello. Nice to see you.
Adriana's coming from Barnet.
Adriana from Barnet. That's great.
Chloe from the Isle of Wight.
Again from the Isle of Wight, Chloe. That's nice. That's really good.
Jane from Hitchin.
Jane from Hitchin. Hello, Jane. That's nice. It's nice to have a bit of a spread. I used to live in Barnet. In fact, I grew up in Barnet. In East Barnet was my sort of childhood home. Liz from Berlin. Oh, that's nice. That's nice that you've tuned in from Germany. That's very good.
Sue's in South Wales.
Sue's in South Wales. Hopefully the weather's nice in South Wales. We're having beautiful, beautiful days here.
Caroline's from Wing in Buckinghamshire.
From where in Buckinghamshire?
Wing.
Wing. Hello, Caroline from Wing in Buckinghamshire. That's great. Pregrad from Serbia. Another, you were here last time I was teaching, I think. That's great.
Shobit from India.
Somebody from India. What's his name?
Shobit.
Shobit. Welcome from India. That's lovely. Lovely that you're joining us every day. We've been looking at the whole system of practice, and today I'm going to be looking at spiritual death. So we've had a day on integration, a day on positive emotion, a day on dharmic receptivity, and now on spiritual death. It's a bit of a joke actually to do a day on each. These are not, they're principles of the Dharma life. So you practice these principles over a lifetimes. So don't worry if, we're giving you perhaps more input than you can process. And don't worry if it feels too much. You could sort of maybe do two things. It's slightly tricky, but if it is too much, then you can sort of listen to the teachings and sort of park them somewhere. They may come in useful at some point, but they may not be where your practice is at the moment. Anyway, hopefully what I say today will be of relevance, at least for some of you. So the first thing to say is that, well, I've said this before, perhaps not on this retreat, that it's really, really important to, in meditation, not have a fixed sort of goal-oriented attitude where we think that we're trying to get somewhere. This is true in the mindfulness of breathing, and it's true in the metta bhavana, where it's very easy to latch onto some sort of imagined ideal meditation that we should be having, and then to fall short of that, and then to berate ourselves for not meeting whatever ideal it was. And particularly, I think it's easy in the metta practice to want a big experience of metta, as if it should be some huge operatic emotion. And it's just never helpful to have that sort of attitude to meditation. What we need to learn, if we haven't already learned it, is much more of a process-oriented way of meditating rather than a goal-oriented way of meditating. So a process-oriented approach would be a commitment to staying with our experience moment to moment as it unfolds. Whatever that experience is, meeting it with patience, with awareness, with gentleness, with friendliness, a metaphor attitude, and then nudging that experience, looking at where we are, honestly, without sort of without berating ourselves for falling short, if that's what's happening. So just being patient and honest, but then being intelligent about that where we are and seeing if we can nudge that experience in the direction of depth in our practice. Yeah. So process orientation is very, very different to having some sort of imagined future goal that ignores how I am right now, but wants to feel love or something, regardless of how I am now. Never very helpful. Yeah. Okay, that's just as a bit of an aside. But what I particularly want to look at when we start talking about spiritual death is, well, what's meant by that? In some ways, spiritual death might not be a great term. I like it, but not everybody does, because it can sound a bit frightening, a bit scary. Death, obviously, can be a scary kind of word, not just a word, but a concept, an experience. It can evoke fear. In this stage of practice, what's being said is that all that dies, all that needs to die, is a wrong view, a delusion, a wrong idea. Actually, view and idea are not quite right in that they can connote something that's conscious. What dies is a deep-seated delusion that is pre-conscious, that all human beings are born with. And it's a delusion that in the Dharma life, we're trying to become more conscious of, and then to sort of undo. It's like we've got a knot that's tied up in our mind, in our being, in our guts, and it causes us pain. The Buddha talked about a dart, like an arrow, a dart in the heart, a thorn in the heart. And he said that he had plucked it out. And the thorn in the heart causes us pain, it causes us frustration, it leads us round and round in circles in our life, seeking happiness, perhaps momentarily finding happiness, finding that it doesn't last, getting frustrated again, striving again for the next thing, perhaps getting it and then getting frustrated again, or bored, or whatever it is. And then, of course, worse things can happen as well. Life can bring all sorts of difficulties and calamities even. So there's this dart that we're trying to pull out. And the reason that we're trying to pull it out is that it's possible for consciousness, for us, for our minds, to inhabit a whole new dimension of experience, a whole new dimension of experience. And that doesn't require us going to heaven. It doesn't require us literally dying, physically dying, and then being reborn in some paradise, although that might happen. It requires us to intelligently look at this wrong assumption, this delusion, and untie the knot that we've tied ourselves into. And then of itself, consciousness will expand into a radiant experience of spaciousness, of fulfillment, of freedom, of joy, of bliss, of energy. It won't necessarily happen just like that. It's not easy to undo this delusion. Sometimes, if you're blessed, you can have glimpses of this radiant new consciousness. It is new. It's like nothing that we normally associate with ourselves. And that's why it's depicted in Buddha figures as golden and beautiful. It is, as it were, beyond our normal experience, and it's not easy to undo the delusion. At the same time, it is possible to undo the delusion, and even undoing the knot or the delusion to a small extent yields great benefit and fruit. So it's not an all or nothing. Practice is gradual, and as you grow and as you undo this knot, more and more expansive, beautiful, fulfilled states arise that then permeate and penetrate into your whole life and benefit not just you, but all those around you. So something, it's as it were, comes through us. So what I'm trying to say is that don't lose heart if you don't immediately have an experience of a radiant, expansive mind. We have to work from where we are. Yeah? But this delusion, one way of talking about it is that we experience our experience, our life, as having a fixed, like we're a fixed entity in a fixed world, rather than seeing everything as flowing forms of energy, rather than seeing the world as dynamic and interconnected and always flowing and unfolding, and seeing ourselves as part of that, we see ourselves as separate from the world and as fixed, and you know, as we identify with the body and then cling to this sense of me, and the external world we see as separate to me. It's not really external. Those ideas of internal and external don't really hold water when you examine them. But that external world we see also as fixed, including other people. We see them as objects out there, independent of me as a perceiving subject. So there's a real me perceiving a real world. And that's so instinctive. It's so instinctive. It's as deep as human beings, as human life, as human consciousness. And it's wrong. It's just not how things are. And if we could see how things are, we'd let go of this fixation of wanting to hold on to me and protect this sense of me, this sense of being, of having an identity. We'd let go of that. And in the letting go, this new consciousness would arise. Yeah? It would just arise if we could let go. So what the Buddha saw was that it was clinging that was the thorn in the heart. It was our self-clinging, our clinging to me as an idea. That clinging causes us pain, dukkha, suffering. Dukkha is the word, unsatisfactoriness. And that clinging is based on a delusion. So spiritual death is about undoing the delusion and then, as it were, releasing, therefore, the clinging. Now, we can also work the other way around. We can soften the clinging, and that will soften the delusion. It will also lead to more expansive states. You can work on both sides. So when we're doing the metta practice, or when we're trying to deliberately practice generosity, kindness, cultivate Buddhist ethics, awareness, what we're doing is we're softening the clinging, we're loosening the self-clinging, and that will also lead to fulfillment. But it's not a complete fulfillment, and it won't be a permanent fulfillment as long as the delusion is still in our being somewhere. So spiritual death is about working more directly with the delusion, seeing the delusion for what it is. And in a way, that's all you need. If you see it as a delusion, it undoes itself. Yeah. But yes, you can work the other way around. It's also possible to have periods of expansive, spacious consciousness, sort of peak experiences, where we realize that there's more to us than we thought. And if we have those, then that can strengthen our shraddha, our faith, our confidence in the truth of the Buddha Dharma. Faith is also important, because if we're trying to undo this clinging to self, or the idea of self, I should say, we need faith that there's something vast and beautiful and worthwhile that will arise if we let go of my sense of self. Yeah? So faith is also important. So many of our practices, particularly puja, but also many other practices, are there to develop shraddha, so that when we come to do this work of letting go of the delusion, we're more able to let go without fear arising. We're able to just sort of soften into this new mind, this new consciousness. And if there is shraddha, and if there is metta, if the heart is open, this letting go of the delusion, the letting go of clinging that results from letting go of the delusion, it can be very, very gentle. One teaching describes it as butter melting in barley soup. It's like just the delusion of self, our wrong view of who I am, just melts, and it's beautiful and blissful, and there's no sort of problem if there's enough shraddha there. So shraddha is really, really important. Yeah, really, really important. And this letting go is it's sometimes counterintuitive. So what we're going to do is do something that is sort of a bit of a practice in letting go. It's important that we learn to this more counterintuitive practice of what it feels like to let go. So what we're going to do in the meditation is look at our experience, particularly look at our experience of sensations in the body, which we've been doing all week. Really see if we can look at and feel any areas of holding on, any areas where we're tensing or clinging in the body. I'm indicating, I don't know if you can see my belly, because that's often an area of clenching, but it can happen anywhere. Look for also areas where we're holding on in an emotional way. So sometimes we're holding on to a grudge or a resentment or a hurt or a story about self, about me, or about, indeed, a story about somebody else. There's an emotional clenching, a tightness, which of course then prevents the heart from opening. So this holding on can be physical, and it can be emotional, and normally, in fact, the two go together. That's what clinging feels like. Because not only is it tensing in the body, this holding on contracts our minds. It means that we inhabit a smaller, less bright, less fulfilled, less free mind. And that's dukkha, that's unsatisfactoriness. That's what the Buddha said was the unenlightened human condition. Even when things are going well for us, if we're clinging, our minds are small compared to what they could be. We may not recognize that if things are going well for us, but compared to our potential, it's like we're inhabiting an unsatisfactory state. That's how the Buddha saw us. So what we're doing is, as well as letting go of clinging, and I'll say a little bit about how we let go, we're having a very soft background reflection. And the reflection doesn't have to be verbal, but the words of it, if I was to make it verbal, are clinging causes dukkha, or clinging causes unsatisfactoriness. So that is the insight that undoes the delusion. If we could really see that the truth of this, that clinging causes dukkha, clinging causes pain, unsatisfactoriness, if we could see that, not just intellectually, but in our very, very bones, then the delusion would be undone. We wouldn't cling. The clinging would just go, and a radiant consciousness would open up. So that's the verbal or the non-verbal background reflection that I'd like us to have in the meditation as we try and soften and loosen areas of holding on in the body, in the heart, and indeed in our minds. Clinging causes dukkha. We need to keep sort of learning and relearning that. Yeah? To learn that or relearn that, or to see it with insight, we don't have to be experiencing much dukkha. It's not like we have to wait until life falls apart before we learn this lesson. We could be fine, completely fine in our lives and learn this lesson. In a way, the more emotionally positive we are, the easier this lesson will be to learn. It's on the basis of an integrated, emotionally positive, dharmically receptive mind that this lesson, this teaching, will go in the deepest. That's why we've built up to this point. So it's not that we wait for suffering. It's more that we just notice that we're not as fulfilled as we could be. Yeah? And we have confidence in the teaching of the Buddha that says we could be enlightened, we could be experiencing a whole new level of contentment, of peace, of freedom, of beauty, of love. So yeah, we don't have to wait till life falls apart. So you might be feeling fine, or you might be feeling that there is some dukkha in your experience. And in either case, we can work in this way. Yeah? It's sort of, you don't have to be feeling any particular way for this practice to work. Okay, so how we let go is I'll lead us in a body awareness, and then it'll be a sort of period of a sort of open meditation where you can focus on the breath if you want to. And if you find yourself very distracted, you could count, as we do in the mindfulness of breathing. By the way, I'm not teaching meditation from scratch in this slot, as it's obvious, hopefully. If you are new to meditation, I think you will be able to follow what I'm saying in the meditation, but also I really recommend the morning 8:30, I believe, slots where we're teaching from scratch, and there's always catch up on our website if you need to. So I'm going to lead us in a sort of body awareness, and also I'm going to ask us how our hearts feel. Is there clinging in the heart. And also, as we do this, notice any dukkha in your experience, subtle or obvious. And then turn towards it. Turn towards where it feels uncomfortable in the body, or uncomfortable in the heart, or an uncomfortable experience in the mind. Turn towards it with kindness, with receptivity, with gentleness. That's the counterintuitive bit, that we actively turn towards this area of discomfort, be it really subtle, like just a little bit of tension in the shoulders or in the belly, or be it really obvious, like there's some real hurt or pain in our experience, physical or emotional. We turn towards it with gentleness, and then we stay with it, not wishing it away, not pushing it away, because pushing it away just adds to the clinging, the tensing. We stay with it with patience, with tenderness, even with the eyes of love, even with a sort of welcome, like you'd, if a friend or a child was in pain, you'd probably embrace them with tenderness. It's that tenderness and that embrace that we bring to the dukkha in our own experience. And we sort of soften around it, because it's dukkha. What we tend to do is push it away, and that causes the clinging. So if you notice the actual clinging in the body or in the heart, see if you can just soften. That's all you need to do. You soften and you release, but you're not trying to get rid of the dukkha. It's more that you're softening your response to it. Yeah. Our instinctive response is to protect and tense and push. That's the thing that we're relaxing. The dukkha, the unsatisfactoriness is welcome to just stay. We're softening our response to it. And it's in that softening of the response that the magic starts to happen. And then, as I say, subvocally or even vocally, you have this background sort of awareness that clinging causes dukkha, that clinging causes pain or unsatisfactoriness. And as we release and soften, and as you experience the fruits of that, the truth of clinging causing suffering will become more evident to you. Yeah? And then, in a way, it goes a little bit deeper. If we, as I say, saw it with insight, then we'd be thrust into this new state altogether. But don't grasp after insight. Don't push, because that pushing is another form of clinging. So the reason I'm saying that new consciousness is possible is not so that we grasp after it, but because we cultivate shraddha, because we need faith that there's something very positive if we turn towards the dukkha in this way. Yeah. So dukkha isn't, we're not turning towards dukkha or focusing on it as an end in itself. It's said to be a doorway. It's one of the marks of conditioned existence. It's one of the facts of conditioned existence that the Buddha pointed to. But he didn't point to it because out of some pessimism or stoicism. He pointed to it because approached in this way, it's a doorway to a transcendental state. If we see it with insight, yes, this world, everything I cling to, there is nothing really there to grasp. It's not worth holding on to me or to the world. If we can really soften our attitude to life, then something new opens up. That's the Buddha's teaching. Something new opens up. That's why he's saying this world is unsatisfactory, to stop us clinging to it. Yeah? So often we just imagine that if I only get the next goodie that I want, in my case, I've got on order an iPad Air. Comes with a keyboard that I've also ordered. I've got the pencil. You get a pencil with the iPad. You can do anyway, so I can draw on it. The iPad Air was out of stock, but the pencils arrived. So part of me is looking forward to the iPad Air and its keyboard arriving. And do you see, in that act of looking forward, even me, I'm causing pain. What a silly thing to look forward to. What a stupid thing for me, a Buddhist, to look forward to. So I try and let go when I notice that, oh yes, my thought has gone to some new gadget. I try and let go and allow the world to open up. There is beauty around us, and we don't necessarily need an iPad Air to reveal that. So, okay, that's enough talking. So in the meditation, I'll lead us into the practice with the body awareness and ask us to look at how we are in our hearts. And then I'll ask you to focus on your breath, and you can count if you want to. I won't ring bells for the practice, because you can work appropriately if you need to count. But mainly what I'm going to be asking us to do is when you have found a degree of concentration, then to start looking for areas where you can soften more, where you can let go more, where you can release any holding on. Yeah. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. And then I'll read some Rumi. Before and after. Okay, very good. So making yourselves comfortable. So seeing if you can, once you're comfortable, seeing if you can make a decision to sit as still as possible, to not move unless you're really in pain. And I mean physical pain. In which case, yes, of course, try and adjust and soften that. But if you can bear it, just sit as still as you can. Let's take a few deeper breaths when you're sitting still. And already, as you breathe out, you can have a sense of letting go, of holding on in the body. It's as if you're breathing out a sigh of relief. And the body can just soften. And the weight can drop away into the ground. Really feel the weight falling from the body, from the sitting bones and the points of contact. with the earth, with the ground. Feel that weight and let it go. If you want to, you could imagine that you're lying in the sun and all the muscles in the body are softening in the heat and the light of the sun. Tension just melts away. And the face softens. The jaw, the muscles around the mouth soften. And the legs, the muscles in the thighs and calves. We're letting go of the legs, letting them just be heavy and soft. And the shoulders. Letting the shoulders drop away a little bit more down the sides of your body. And the hands. Noticing the sensations you can feel in your hands, in the fingers, in the palms, in the backs of your hands. And the hands can just become soft and heavy and open. The belly. Noticing sensations in the belly. And the subtle sensations and the movement in the belly as you breathe. And imagining the belly softening. No need to cling, no need to hold on. having an overall awareness of the sensations in the body. Having a sense of the upper body being upright and a subtle lift from the crown of your head towards the sky. So the body is both relaxed and alert. Sense of the energy of the body, the subtle body, the subtle energy. Sometimes felt as tingling. Notice how you are in the heart, what the emotional tone of your experience is. How does the heart feel? And turning towards it, however you feel, turning towards it with patience, with a gentle tenderness. And a softening. And also becoming aware of the sensations of breathing, letting the breath come into focus, not as an idea, but the actual sensations. You can use the breath, the sensations of the breath, as an anchor for your awareness, without losing an awareness of the other sensations in the body, the heart, and the mind. So in the practice, if you get distracted, keep coming back to the breath and to the sensations you can feel in the body. But also keep looking to soften any areas where you notice clinging, any areas of holding on. Turn towards them with tenderness and stay with them, encouraging a softening. If you can, there's a background reflection. Clinging causes dukkha. Clinging causes unsatisfactoriness. Clinging causes suffering. You don't have to say the words. It's more a reflection that's in the background, in the consciousness, as you turn towards your experience and let go. To die in life is to become life. The wind stops skirting you and enters. All the roses suddenly are blooming in your skull. So staying with your experience. Keep softening, keep letting go. Keep coming back to your experience and softening and letting go. Noticing any spaciousness and sense of well-being that opens up as you let go. For now, letting go of trying to do anything at all, and just sitting for a little bit longer in awareness of your experience without trying to do anything in particular. Just sitting. To die in life is to become life. The wind stops skirting you and enters. All the roses suddenly are blooming in your skull. Good. So I hope that was helpful, and hope you have a really good rest of the day on the retreat. And for now, we'll be going into our breakout groups or into breakout groups for half an hour till 11:30, and I'll see you tomorrow. Good. Thank you.